It was an eventful day at day 10 of practice, but of course, the dominating story was Coach Hines Ward.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back in. Today we are going to be taking a look at day 10 of practice. It is ramping up, and we are coming to the conclusion of spring ball very, very quickly. Not this Friday, but the following Friday will be the spring game. It's going to be in the evening. If you can make it out, make it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be all sorts of energy that's out there. I will be there. It's going to be a good time. Go out, support the boys, support the team, activate the Valley. But before we get that far, we have to talk about practice today. And there was a lot to talk about. There was the Hines Ward aspect of it. There was a lot of back and forth from the offense, from the defense. It was good battles. There were big plays from both sides of the football. And I want to talk about the quarterback battle as well. But we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. I want to start with a quick injury update for you guys. The big news here was Max Ionaker, the offensive tackle for the team, is going to be out for the remainder of spring as he's working through a shoulder injury. And Cam Scadaboo was nicked up at practice today. No time frame on when he will return. I don't think it was anything too serious. It's nothing I can go too in detail about, but I can tell you that Kenny Dillingham said he is nicked up. He is TBD on where to go from here. Beyond that, Kenny said himself, this is a healthy team. We are looking very good. Everybody's seemingly in good shape. Everybody seems to be working very well, and we're just very happy with where we're at right now. Now then, let's go ahead and get into the big part of the podcast right now, the meat and potatoes, and that's Hines Ward. In case you're sleeping under a rock, former Steelers MVP, two-time Super Bowl champion, Hines Ward is the new wide receivers coach at Arizona State, taking over for Rashada Samples, who took a new role with the Oregon Ducks football program. Ward was introduced on Saturday. Kenny Dillingham had plenty to say about him. And then, of course, we got our first chance to talk to Coach Ward at the end of practice today. A lot to take away from first day of practice. First of all, this guy, oh man, you feel his presence when you're on the field. Like, it was difficult. And keep in mind, this is as a Baltimore Ravens fan. It was difficult to not be a little bit starstruck by being on the same field as Hines Ward and being within, 5 feet of him at one point in time. Like, it was a really crazy feeling. And I can tell you, if I'm feeling that the players are feeling that, I'm sure that the fan base and the entire Valley is feeling it as well, is a person of the caliber that Hines Ward is infectious to be around. But I'll tell you, he's business. He's not out here to sign autographs and take pictures. He is out here to do a job. And you could tell day one, I mean, there wasn't any kind of warm up for these guys. They hopped right into drills, and he immediately told them, these are the expectations. This is what I want from you guys. A really interesting nugget that he put in during the post-practice conference that he had with the media that I really liked is he said his expectations are no less than what his are. And what he means by that is the expectation that he had placed himself on during his career is what he's going to place on these kids. And he said, not all of these kids are going to go to the pros. We understand that, but we're still going to demand excellence out of these kids. And of course, in the most Hines Ward thing ever, he said, we're going to learn how to run block. And it's absolutely the one thing we knew was coming. Rashad Samples was all about it. When you would talk about him, he would tell you, we got to set the edge in the running game. We need to not be afraid. So they're picking up where Samples left off. So this isn't foreign territory for them. But now you're adding a wide receiver who, during his career in the pros, I mean, he was arguably the greatest blocker that the wide receiver position has ever seen. I mean, that was just a pissed off individual. Now you are implementing that mentality to these kids, not just teaching it, not just having them observe, but you have somebody who has literally done it at a high level, at a Hall of Fame level. These kids are going to respond to that. Day one, we'll see. But what I can tell you is he's not gonna take his time with these kids and ease them into it. He knows what he wants. He knows where the kids are at. That's where we're going to be. It's not a matter of not so much giving them like a chance to understand everything. Like, he is giving them a chance to understand what he wants, but what he's not doing is taking it slow with them. Here's the expectations. You're going to get started. And we got to see a taste of that with the tennis ball drill. And basically, you had 4 cones set up in a little square, and the receivers would line up and they would practice little cuts around each square. And as they were coming out of their cuts, Hines Ward would toss a tennis ball at them. And he said, in dodgeball fashion, you can catch a tennis ball, you can catch anything. You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Like, that was the same kind of energy that it gave off. And lo and behold, these guys were having to concentrate a little bit more because tennis balls, if you don't know, are significantly smaller than footballs. This isn't exactly something that these guys are going to be accustomed to catching coming out of breaks and everything. There is a much smaller area that they have to be able to pull these balls in. It brings more concentration, and you really have to focus on your hands and your placement because you don't have as big a room for error where you can grab a football with one hand. You really can't do that coming out of your breaks with a tennis ball. You do need to be able to locate it. And if they didn't, guess what? Get down, give me 10. You're going to run through this again. Hines Ward was also very vocal. This isn't a quiet guy. This is somebody that is not afraid to raise his voice. He's not afraid to demand your attention. He's doing this from day one. This is not somebody that's easing into his role. This is somebody that is embracing, hey, this is what I am looking for. This is the culture and the attitude that we're going to have when you practice under me and what it's going to look like when you do get onto the football field. Very important stuff to think about. Now, from a recruiting aspect, that's everyone's biggest question is how is Hines Ward going to look as a recruiter? Because one of the biggest boons that you had out of Rashad Samples was how great of a recruiter he was. He was well renowned across the country for how good he was at recruiting kids. There are massive holes to fill here, massive shoes to step into for Hines Ward. And for what it's worth, at the press conference, he said, when I'm done here, I'm going to my office and I'm making some phone calls. We're going to start recruiting. That's great news. There's a whole other side of this to the recruiting aspect that goes into Hines Ward that can be attacked through the transfer portal and everything. But now's not the time to get too in detail with it. I want to focus on what we saw in training camp today. So we will kick that can down the road and come back to it another time. But we definitely will have a conversation about what recruiting could look like with Hines Ward now at the head for Sun Devils football. But we're going to go ahead and transition into the next part of the podcast and talk about all the back and forth that we had today at practice, both the good and the bad for the offense and defense. It was a fun day. There were big plays on both sides of the football, and we're going to talk about it and get you filled in. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I have been told that I'm quite a competitive person by my friends, my family, and even some of my co-hosts when we do all of our stuff. And, well, I do have a competitive side, but we all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it by now. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part, it's messing with your friends. I can charge them rent on iconic properties just like in classic Monopoly, but now I can also rob their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it, because you can team up with your friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get into the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go free on the App Store or Google Play. It's Locked On's NFL Mock Draft Live on April 17th, tomorrow, people, starting at 7 Eastern, streaming on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 Eastern to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, from live reactions from local college football experts like myself and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft on April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming live on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Let's dive right back into our conversation now, because there's still plenty to be discussed. We are going to be taking a look at the big plays that were going on all throughout practice. And again, there was a lot of them. Defense had some wins. Offense had some wins. It was very fun to see. And that was no more evident than the end of practice. And at the end of practice, when we had our 11-on-11s, we had lots of rotation from the quarterbacks, and they all had their highs and lows. You had Jaden Rashada was throwing the ball. You had Trenton Bourget. You had Sam Leavitt, and they had great throws. They had bad throws. They had drops, all that. The defense generated pressure. They batted balls down. They picked off opposing quarterbacks, and they gave up big plays. To me, there are two big plays that stand out the most. And it was from the final segment of practice. The first was Jordyn Tyson got a huge touchdown grab. Was right down the middle of the field, about 50 yards. And Sam Leavitt just put it up. That thing levitated. And even for being pretty far away that we're down in the south end zone. They were doing more of it in the north end zone. But you could still see that Jordyn Tyson was making a play. And I'm not sure who the DB that he ended up going over and making the play was. But what I do know is this is becoming a every practice recurrence for Jordyn Tyson. When we discuss the biggest winners of spring ball, I don't think there's anybody who has made more of a name for themselves and has made themselves more well-known. You can't really say more money because this isn't like NFL draft or anything, but to a certain extent, it feels like that kind of situation where it's like he's just getting better and better and better, and you can't help but talk about him. Jordyn Tyson, someone who I highlighted last year as a player I was very excited about before he missed pretty much all the season, looks every bit as good as what I hoped he would be. This guy is it, man. He is Himothy. He is Himothy Chalamet, Himmy Turner, any of the other little play on words that you can do with that. This is a stud. This is a beast. This is a guy who can go up with his size, but also burn you with his speed. There's not been a perfect performance out of him, but man, it feels like 90% of the time Jordyn Tyson is doing something incredible. And practice today was just another example of that. He just looks like he's having fun out there. That's another huge aspect here. Is he looks like he's having a good time, just being able to run around the field and do a little bit of everything for the team, from a route runner to a burner. Obviously, they're going to be working with him in run blocking and whatnot. He has got to be arguably the biggest winner of spring ball so far. But of course, the defense had some plays too. There was several interceptions throughout the day. There was plenty of DBs making plays. Keontae Bradley, Rodney Bimage were making plays. You had plenty of players on the defensive side of the football who were making plays in the secondary, but pass rush looked good too. Prince Dorbah was doing things. Clayton Smith was doing things. Karen Stansbury was doing things. Elijah O'Neal was doing things. The linebackers got involved. Tate Romney was generating some pressure. Zyrus Fiaseu was generating some pressure. Every level of the field, all three levels, were having some really good reps. And again, it just was a really good back and forth. Like, the offense would have 2 or 3 really good plays, and then the defense would get back-to-back sacks. And then the offense would get a 20-yard completion, and then the defense would break up a pass. Offense would get a touchdown. A couple plays later, defense gets a turnover. Like, it was a very even practice. It was not overly one side or the other. I don't think I could give an edge to one side over the other side. I don't think I could tell you, like, hey, the offense won today or the defense won today. This was as close to a 50-50 practice as I've seen from the Sun Devils in really any practices that I've witnessed. Going back to last year, like, this was a very even practice. And everybody was getting involved too. It's not like Sam Leavitt was the only one making plays at quarterback. Rashada and Bourget were making plays too. It's not like Jordyn Tyson was the only receiver. You still had Troy O'Mary and Melcon Stovall and Corbin Hendricks that were making plays. You had guys all throughout the secondary. I highlighted Rodney Bimage and Keontae Bradley, but Keith Abney was getting involved. LaTerrence Welsh had a really nice day. There were all sorts of guys. The defensive line, I named 4 different guys. It's lots of rotation. And I love it. What have I said pretty much going into every week? I want to see rotation. Today was the biggest example of that. It was the epitome of what I've been asking for, was give me rotation, give me rotation, give me rotation. That's what it was. And it felt like everybody got to make a play at some point in time. It felt like every single player on the Sun Devils got to do something. That's fun. That's special. I walked away with this being arguably my favorite practice of the spring, and just one of my favorites that I've attended in the Kenny Dillingham era. This is a special not outcome. It's been a special spring ball. It's been a lot of fun to see everybody clinging on to the coaching staff and the culture. It's been fun to see everybody challenging each other, all the smack talk going back and forth, all of the energy that you see going from the offense to the defense after big plays. It's fun. And today was a special practice. But there is one more conversation that we need to have. And it's a big one involving the quarterbacks. We'll hop into it in just one moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find qualified professionals that are right for the role. That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps hire the right professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to a perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're looking on LinkedIn, if you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're looking at the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. And because of that, they're constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even launched a new feature that helps write job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker than before. 2.5 million businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Let's wrap up this episode with a conversation and a debate and just a really interesting situation that has rolled out of all of this. The quarterback spot. You've had Sam Leavitt, Jaden Rashada going head to head. And it's been huge for Rashada to get back on the football field. We were not expecting to see him during spring because he was recovering from a thumb surgery. But he's battled through it, and he's out there, and he's competing. He needs to compete because you still have Trenton Bourguet, a lifelong Sun Devil. You've got preferred walk-on Navi Bruzan, somebody who is a borderline legend in the Valley after everything he did at Liberty High School. And you got Sam Leavitt. Leavitt, of course, was also a 4-star recruit in last year's cycle with Jaden Rashada. Suddenly, it does not feel overly certain that Jaden Rashada is your starting quarterback. Now, I don't like to get into overreactions too much. And especially in spring ball, I don't want to sit here and gobble this stuff up, whether it's rumors, whether it's just guys looking really good or looking really bad. You have to take this stuff with a grain of salt. It is spring practice. This is not the end all be all. But with that in mind, there still is some weight that needs to be applied and carried when we have these conversations. And something that we need to talk about is Jaden Rashada for sure, without question, the starting quarterback. Going into camp, he probably wasn't, but you felt about 80 to 90% sure that Jaden Rashada was slam dunk starting quarterback. And it's not even that Jaden Rashada hasn't been good. He's looked as good as everybody else. Like, he's had some great plays. It's not that Rashada's looked bad. Rashada has looked good. But you know who else has looked good? Sam Leavitt. And Sam Leavitt is going to push Jaden Rashada in the best way. And Rashada is going to push Sam Leavitt. This is not, I just want to clarify, make it a well-known point. This is not saying Rashada's been bad. It is saying that Sam Leavitt has been equally as good. So with that in mind, we're going to have a very interesting conversation throughout training camp, provided Leavitt takes that momentum into training camp. No guarantees. But this is going to be really fun. I think last year we kind of had a taste of it with Drew Pine and Trenton Bourget and Jaden Rashada. Like, you had 3 quality quarterbacks. The difference now, though, is Leavitt and Rashada both have the same amount of eligibility. They're both redshirt freshmen. They're both highly recruited players. They're both highly talented kids. Like, if there's going to be somebody to compete with Jaden Rashada, it's Sam Leavitt. How Jaden responds to this is going to define the entirety of his career at Arizona State. He said during the offseason, coach approached me. He said, we're bringing in somebody to compete. I said, bring it on. Well, someone's here to compete. And not just compete, but they're here to take your job. And there's just no guarantees. I am still one of the biggest Jaden Rashada fans in the world. I still stand by, unless he just looks miserably bad. And I don't see that happening. But unless he is miserably bad and Sam Leavitt is just that much better, I don't see Jaden Rashada not being the starting quarterback. It's just worth monitoring. Because I've been told, I've spoken with people that have said, keep an eye out. Sam Leavitt looks pretty good. Jaden Rashada is not going to be waltzing his way to QB1. He's going to have to work for it. And we knew that, but it has really become prevalent now through 10 practices that Sam Leavitt is very much a threat to Jaden Rashada right now. And it's a very good thing. It is a very good thing. This is not bad for Jaden Rashada. This is simply, we got good competition. Because it doesn't matter if Rashada isn't the winner. What that tells me is that Sam Leavitt is more than good enough to lead the charge. And even if Sam Leavitt is not the starting quarterback, I can still take solace knowing that he pushed Jaden Rashada to be the best that he possibly could. It's a very interesting situation. It's very fluid. I am going to reiterate, put not a lot of stock into this. Like, it's spring. We are halfway through April. We do not have any idea who the starting quarterback is going to be for 4.5 months. And there's going to be a lot of change in between now and then. But until that happens, it's going to be fun. We got a handful of practices left to see how this continues to shake out. No one's going to be announced a starter. Rashada's going to get first team reps. Leavitt's going to get first team reps. Bourget is going to get first team reps. All that I want to say, and I'll leave with this. Jaden Rashada has to be, at a minimum, as good as Sam Leavitt has been. And Leavitt has been good. If Rashada starts slipping, Leavitt has a chance to capitalize. Again, take it with a grain of salt. This is 100% closer to an overreaction than it is to analysis. But Leavitt's looked good. And I will be continuing to pay attention to Leavitt. What are you guys paying attention to? What do you want to know about camp? How do you feel about Hines Ward? Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, though, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, tomorrow, we're going to be taking a look at the transfer portal. And as of now, no Sun Devils football players have entered the portal. Kamari Lands for the basketball team has entered the transfer portal. But we're going to be looking at football tomorrow. We're going to be looking at some of the biggest names in the portal, who makes sense, who doesn't make sense, who I want to see us add and be aggressive with. We'll cover it all tomorrow. So tune in. Until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.